Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today I wanted to talk about my last video was kind of fun about powering up your space drive, and it was fun, but it had serious connotations to it. Today I'm responding to articles in the media about COVID-19 and the black fungus that's hitting India. I wanted to talk a little bit about what can be done to protect the people of India. The black fungus is a terrible thing. It's leading to just the most horrific death. It's bad enough to have a cancer, but to have your face and have it all destroyed is terrifying to people. It's like it's how do you solve your problem, especially considering this, the symptoms associated with it. I wanted to share how to address that issue. Okay, the COVID-19 comes from, as I've talked about before, comes from the idea of equating people and snakes. So this is something where, and all the ramifications of that, the ripples of effects that go out from that, like the family, how, let's say, the children weren't affected right away because the kids don't normally see, small kids don't normally see other people as snakes. They just see them as people. But their immune systems were affected when their parents were fighting over it, or the father was fighting over it with a neighbor or something like that. Their immune systems were affected. They couldn't defend themselves, not from the virus, but from their parents. It's like a ripple of effect. If your parents are fighting, well, how do the kids defend themselves from that? Okay, so the older kids can go off, and that's how, let's say, how people reacted to it is how the other animals were brought in, like bats hanging high up in the trees. Are you going to stay high up away from people? Are you going to be a pangolin and roll up in a ball and defend yourself? Are you going to be a tiger and lash out? How are you going to respond to each of these things? To the snakes, you see, these are how you're going to respond to the snakes in your life. So we have to kind of unravel this whole thing. Okay, black fungus affects the lungs, and it affects when the immune system is down. So you can't defend yourself, then the immune system is being attacked. A fungus, you have no defense, okay? So when a fungus thrives in an environment that is darkness, lack of light, and in places where there is warmth and water, warm and wet environments generally. So like the eyes where there's water, from the eyes, and the hollow spots which are dark and moist and things like that. So that's why it affects those places. In other words, what we're doing is we're looking at an environment where the fungus can grow. The fungus grows in India. You have the snakes. You have the environment for fungus. Lots of water is a symbol of emotions. So when there's lots of emotions, lots of fear going on, I am going to do just an aside for a minute. Our Azalea Festival is coming up in our little town where we live, and our town has been affected by our what's called sudden oak death. It's a fungus that's attacking. When there's this fear going on, and it's all over the world now, the darkness, associated with the fear for the economy, the fear for like local issues that are occurring. This fungus is attacking trees in our area, attacking the tan oak trees, attacking Douglas fir, and our economy in this region is based on Douglas fir. There are lots of loggers in this area, but it also affects rhododendrons and other species rhododendrons are like out in the woods. It's so beautiful when you drive through this area on a misty day and you see the forest, and then you see this bright pinkish red rhododendron growing right there. So it's a very beautiful area. Okay, so now when we have the fear associated with it, it's attacking all of these things. Our immune system is down because of the fear that's out in the area. When we did our prayer circle, we noticed an improvement in that. But now what we have is a fungus growing. So this fungus is the darkness, a reaction to the darkness that is all around related to the fear and the anger, the politics. So if there were no people in this area, there wouldn't be any problems, because nature doesn't have that sense of pervasive fear. It's the power games that people are afraid of. So in India, there has been problems lately, political problems, and I haven't been keeping up on them. I've been dealing with other issues. So what we have right now is a sense of fear, a sense of anger in the politics, the snakes, the scoundrels who are causing problem, people who function for their own interests. In the United States, we have a similar thing with the Republicans and the Democrats. And then we have the people whose lives are affected, and then the people who function for their own interests coming in and causing all this rebellion and all these problems. Okay, so now this black fungus is not limited to India by any means. It can travel anywhere, because we have a fungus growing in the banana plantations, the Panama disease, same thing. How about bee colony collapse disorder? It comes from a fungus and a virus. And if you remember, viruses are thought forms. So when you have a beehive situation, you have everybody working together. What will happen is that will be torn apart by the people who function for their own interests, creating a sense of fear. Now, for example, I'm going to use the idea of, in the United States, I'm going to use, as an example, the Republican Party has been using voter suppression for a long time down in the South. The South has had against the black people an act of revenge against the black people. And one of the power games associated with revenge is to deny people a voice in their government. So when you have this whole idea of revenge, fighting back against the snakes, what happens is that area is susceptible to the bee colony collapse disorder, Panama disease. In other countries, we don't grow bananas really here, but also the sudden oak death. And there's also a plant, a food product, and that is, haven't heard about it yet for a while, but one that affects the cucumbers that they use for pickles. Okay, so what it's doing right now is it's affecting the earth around us. The darkness that's coming from the fear is affecting our physical bodies. It's affecting our economy. Here, this area has been quarantined, so the trees basically have to be that are being cut down and turned into lumber basically is being affected, and it's affecting people's health and so let's unravel this problem now. So the people who are mostly affected are the people whose immune system has been shut down. So let's say you have the fear from people who are scoundrels, the snakes out there, the people who function for their own interests and who are coming to attack. Our food supplies are being attacked. So now, and I wanted to, before I go on with that, I wanted to share with you something about this, Okay, now this is something that's very serious, because when famine is when our food supplies are being attacked. So our food supplies are being attacked now, and there's a possibility of famine. So the last step that happens before the acts of terrorism is, and this is when the fighting will be, people will be fighting, but the last step before that is a failed state. This globe is completely out of balance, and it becomes a failed state. The global economy is going to be shutting down. So this is way past time for us to do something about this. So let's do something about it now. Okay, the coronavirus, like I said, came from when people equated people and snakes. Okay, the black fungus is coming about because of the fear associated with all these snakes and the fighting and the trying to defend yourself, and you can't defend yourself from the snakes. So I'm talking about India, but I'm also talking about, let's say, Washington, D.C. What happens when the Republican Party has so much power to not even, let's say, to make a mess of things, to bollocks things up, okay? So our immune system is shutting down. Our court system is not working the way it should, maybe because Donald Trump put in a whole bunch of Trump judges who are loyal to him. They're fighting for their lives. Okay, diabetes. The people who are most affected are the people who have diabetes. Okay, diabetes. That is one of the power games. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. It's the sin of gluttony, and that has to do with compassion. Okay, people who have diabetes, and I'm going to go into this in a different way, lack compassion, and so they get sick to make themselves feel better. I know that doesn't make sense, but it is. You see, they use something outside of themselves to feel better. What they do is they rely on food, and they rely on alcohol. They rely on something outside of themselves to feel better. Alcoholics, diabetes, and bulimia and anorexia are all part of the same thing. They're either pushing it away or they're holding on to it, or it's a dysfunction based on compassion. They get sick to feel better. The only way somebody's going to come and say, "Oh, you poor dear, here, let me prop up your pillow," or something like that. They get compassion when they're sick. Okay, if when they're a child and their mother says, "Gotta go to school anyway. I'm sorry, you're going to school whether you like it or not," then they're not getting compassion by being sick. Not saying that you should do that, but let's not, if you're sick, let's find out why you're sick. Okay, do you have a math class today that you're not prepared for, or what? Okay, so see what I mean? Let's break open the illusion that the power game works with the children. Okay, now, so diabetes is for people who they believe that food will make them feel better, and then what happens is the food stops making them feel better. So they're on their path to their goal. Then they get kicked off course, and suddenly they're not looking at the issues, and then that's when they hit the point of the brick wall. where if they don't have somebody turn them around again, like going to Alcoholics Anonymous, that's when they die. Okay, these 7 deadly sins, they die. Okay, so now you can see that if they're not getting compassion, then this darkness is in front of them. They can't deal with this. It's in their eyes, it's under their skin, and they are facing this crisis. It's part of them, and they can't deal with it. And they're 180 degrees from where they think they're already, and they're dying. They're not facing their issues. They die because of that. It affects the darkness is all around them, and it's closing in on them, and they can't deal with it. Okay, now, the way to deal with this is what's important. The idea for the diabetics, they have to understand that they can't get their life by being sick. You can't get your life by being sick. The darkness is just a fear, and you don't have to worry about this. There's a solution to this. Okay, you just haven't seen it yet, and that will dispel a lot of the darkness that's in their life. You know, he said, I wonder where that came from. What you do is you go outside and you look at nature, and you walk away from the problem, and then you can turn around and you can face it. You don't expect people to make you feel better when they can't make you feel better. You have to assume responsibility for your own life again. You can walk away from that and say, that's just not my job to handle this situation. I don't have to face down the snakes in the world. It's not my job to do that. All I have to do is fulfill my purpose in life and go back to living my life. And the people will survive that. It's the same thing with COVID. If they're overcoming the COVID, it has to do with the idea of the snakes. You don't have to fight the snakes. Okay, so this is where it is. This is the idea. See, the snakes, like I said, what happened was the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats and the Republicans, the people whose lives are affected, and then the people who function for their own interests. The world, the schism, the preemptive strike on Iraq created, and the lie that was told. You hear about the big lie. Well, the big lie was told to justify the preemptive strike on Iraq, too. Someone is presumed innocent in the United States until proven guilty. Saddam Hussein had never been proven guilty. The UN weapons inspectors had not found any records, any trace of weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein was innocent. Now, this court case that is going to come up with our exit strategy for Iraq. I'm not capable. I'm only using the information that I saw in the media and the things that I know about. So let's say that there's going to be a court case, and the United States is going to have to address this issue of that England already did about the sex step idea of I can't even think of that now. Anyway, what happened was now we have to assume responsibility for what happened. We can't just sweep it under the rug. But what it did is it separated the people into these 4 groups. But now what happened is all of these games are collapsing. All these games, they don't work anymore. And universal law has been introduced into this. So it's creating the principles associated with this are what we're looking at now. The principles of equality, the principles of compassion. Okay? Victimization. If there's a lack of compassion, people are being dragged into slavery. Okay? Lack of compassion. Okay? Then all this victimization and all this. I'm a victim of what these people are doing. I'm a slave. I'm dealing with this. It's part of my life, and I can't defend myself from it. The darkness is all around me. How do I deal with this darkness? Well, compassion. Okay, but to get compassion, you can't say, I demand compassion from you by being sick. It doesn't work. To get compassion under universal law, you have to give compassion. Okay? So now what has to happen is we have to introduce this cure, and we have to start to get what we want. We have to give what we want. If the people who are the snakes and the scoundrels are stealing and taking and manipulating and controlling and everything, they lose everything. They lose control. They are under universal law. They're fighting the universe and they can't win. But the people who are giving, you can only give what you know you have. So you give compassion to other people. Okay, so now what it is it's kind of like this backwards idea. You give to get what you want. Okay, tell you what. If Donald Trump is a powerful man, the most powerful man on the world, and he keeps taking power, and he's taking power, and you're fired, and I'm taking your power, and I'm going to drive you out, and all this stuff, and I'm the most powerful man on the planet. You know what happens is he's coming from a lack of power, and he's taking it. It's a lack of compassion. I'm taking it. I don't have it, so I'm taking it from you. Okay, the people who have the real power are going, okay, I'm assuming responsibility for this, okay? And people are looking at them and saying, okay, so I'm coming up with a plan, I'm doing this, I'm assuming responsibility, and people are giving him power. Donald Trump never got above a 50% approval rating. Joe Biden has already got around 60%, which is pretty remarkable, because what he's doing is he's assuming responsibility. He's saying, okay, I may not do it right, I may make mistakes, but I'm assuming responsibility, and I'm going to use the power of the presidency to solve these problems. We might make mistakes, but we're going to do everything we can to help people to unify the country, to solve these problems, and to do all these things. So that attitude, people are more likely to give power than they are to saying, I'm going to not give you anything. I'm going to take, I'm taking. Okay, see, why would anybody give something to somebody who's always taking? Okay, so you have to, if these people have this black fungus idea, they have to understand that even though there's darkness in the world, there's also light. And light is a creative substance that when you put a thought form into it, it creates matter. How do you think viruses are formed? They're created out of fear. Let's say they're created out of the darkness. So the fungus is being created by people. Okay, there's always light. The sun is always shining out there. There's always light. But in the times of profound darkness, you just don't see it because you're afraid. You don't see your opportunity to function on a higher level. You're so afraid. So you have we always have three choices. We can go up. We can stand on principles. We can say, okay, I'm in charge here now. If nobody has a solution, okay, how about me? I'm explaining to you how to solve this problem. I'm assuming responsibility. This is how I am getting my power. I have very little money. I have very little capacity here, except I have a lot of capacity because I am sharing with you how to solve this problem. I'm sharing with you the information that I have, that I got at the prayer circle, that after years of studying, I'm sharing with you how to deal with fungus. Okay, so this weekend at the Azalea Festival, I'm going to be talking about sudden oak death to the people in this area on how to solve the problem. The same problem with sudden oak death. If we can protect the food supply with bees and bee colony collapse disorder, a thought form that became manifested because of the light. Light is a substance that when you put a thought form into it, creates matter. But are you putting it in fear, or are you going to be creating something? Are you going to create something? So how about if there's, instead of being afraid of the darkness, how about coming up with a solution for the problem? How about coming up with an answer to the problem? How about sharing this information with other people? Like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share, because this information is important. Okay, protect the food supply, protect the economy. If, I don't necessarily like cutting down trees, but every day there are trucks that go right by my building here that are carrying logs that have been cut down. Okay, and there's a mill in town, and this is our economy here. So until I can come up with a solution that allows the trees to keep growing, and it may be a form of logging that allows some to be cut down, but not all of them, and to make the forest stronger, because we need to have the logs and the trees to be able to maintain the balance between carbon dioxide and oxygen. So you see what I mean? It's like understanding all of these things, and that's why by creating the international government, what will happen is that the earth will be protected. The departments of the oceans, the departments of the interior, the departments of agriculture, and all the other departments will work together to create a sense of balance in the world. So the only thing that you have to do to solve all these problems is to assume responsibility, help create the international government. We'll turn responsibility over to the people who can solve the problems. We'll help them create a sense of balance in the world. You can actually help to solve the problems of this food supply, of the oceans, and all the things that are happening out there. On one side, I have the highway, and on the other side, just a half a block or half a mile from here, is the Pacific Ocean. So what I have right now is the economy coming through here. I have all of these things that are happening here. I have the loggers and the fishermen here are all part of this flow of, and what we're going to do is I ask that you like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share this information with other people. If the only thing that you can do is support the plan for the international government and the creation of it, you're turning over responsibility to somebody who can solve the problems. You're giving it to somebody, not to me. I don't mind power, but I would rather be a teacher. I'm a teacher like that. So like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share with the people. Share the information that you get on this page about with other people. If there is a fear associated with it, it's just a fear. So, hey, can we do something about it? Instead of running from fear, when you run from fear, it gets bigger. When you turn around and face it and you say, what can I do about that? I can do something about this black fungus idea. I can do something about it now. I'm not going to give compassion to people. To get compassion, you have to give compassion. Nobody said you couldn't live your life. You go live your life. You stop being afraid. You get out of that bed and you go back and living your life. And we have light. Let's, instead of sitting here creating fear, let's stand up and create something that benefits everybody. Okay? Get out of your bed and get up and walk. Okay? So then, now, create the international government. I want to talk to you. If you have somebody who's afraid, what can we do to solve this problem? Because this is not just something that's going to tear us apart. This is our opportunity to function on a higher level, because we create a program, and if we are in war, we stand up and create a program that helps us bring peace. All over the world, there are people who have world peace projects. Mine is one of them, but mine is kind of like the overview idea because it allows other people to create their projects. It's benefiting everybody. Stand up and do something to benefit everybody. Solve the problems out there. Be the teachers. Be the teachers who solve the problems. But most of all, like, share, and subscribe. Send this information out to other people. Okay? All right. Okay. So be it, and so it is. Thank you.